Well, let's see how long I can wear this before it becomes excruciatingly hot. What's going on, WrestleTalk friends and fans? It's 2 Title Tempest here with another edition of the WrestleTalk Recap. If you're watching for the first time, this is the show where I go over the news and notes in the week of professional wrestling and break down anything you may have missed on all of WrestleTalk's YouTube channels. Now without further ado, let's get right on to the match of the week. Now first, I recognize that WWE fans are probably not going to like this selection, because no, it's not the men's WarGame match, although it was very close. The match of the week, instead, goes to a match from Pro Wrestling Noah, where Go Shiozaki took on Takashi Sugiura. That's right, the match took place at Final Chronicle 2020, where the two men battled over the GHC Heavyweight Championship. In what might be the final 5-star match of 2020 from Dave Meltzer, this match was absolutely incredible. One of the best I've ever seen. Shiozaki's chops sounded like they could have chopped down a tree, and Sugiura's chest, well, it was pretty much evident of that. The two battled for 51 minutes in an absolutely insane match, and ultimately, Go Shiozaki was able to retain the GHC Heavyweight Championship. If Go Shiozaki was featured in a more prominent promotion like New Japan Pro Wrestling or AEW, or WWE for that matter, you would have people saying he's one of the 10 best wrestlers in the whole world. And right here, you got a perfect example of why he's so great. Sorry NXT, you'll get him next time. Go watch the WarGames match though, that was really good too. As for the show of the week, it's NXT TakeOver WarGames. There's never been a bad TakeOver show, and that trend continued with NXT TakeOver WarGames 2020. While I was not a fan at all of the booking of the women's WarGames match, the men's WarGames match was perhaps the best WarGames we've seen yet under the WWE banner. The drama in the main event was fantastic, as it was the perfect example of how to build a WarGames match within the match itself. The match built and built until all the biggest stars were hitting the biggest moves left and right, with Pat McAfee hitting a huge swanton bomb off the top of the cage and kicking out of a Panama Sunrise. What world are we living in where Pat McAfee is kicking out of the Panama Sunrise? The Undisputed Era, of course, ended up winning the match after a fantastic battle, but that wasn't the only good match on the show. Timothy Thatcher and Tommaso Ciampa had a little grappling battle that ended up being an excellent little match, while the strap match didn't end up being as bad as I thought it would. I thought Dexter Lumis and Cameron Grimes were gonna have the worst takeover match we've seen all year, but no, it was fine. It was pretty good actually. And of course, we have a new NXT North American champion, as Johnny Gargano regained the championship, becoming the first ever 3-time North American champion, defeating Leon Ruff and Damian Priest in a triple threat match. Austin Theory was also revealed to be Gargano's henchman, taking off the ghost face mask and revealing his allegiance. Switching gears to this week's news, there was a lot of it. Big man wrestlers being sent back to the Performance Center, the only shocking name being Keith Lee. I said this on Twitter, but this is a company that will send Keith Lee back to the Performance Center for additional training, but has kept Nia Jax on the main roster for almost 5 years. Preposterosity. The backstage reaction to Keith Lee's involvement in this has been just about what you would expect. Complete bafflement from other wrestlers. Fightful Select reported this on Friday, saying that, yeah, the wrestlers just don't know what's going on, while other names involved, such as Omos and Otis, were a bit easier to understand. Also this week, it seems that we're going to be getting the return of Goldberg once again. What could go wrong? Appearing on WWE's The Bump, Goldberg said that he still has unfinished business with Roman Reigns, meaning we'll probably get a match between the two in the near future. If Goldberg defeats Roman Reigns, I will throw a fit like you have never seen. Screw the Fiend, I don't care about that. If he beats Roman Reigns now, And of course, maybe the biggest news of the week, Kenny Omega actually appeared on Impact Wrestling. This is something that was unfathomable to think of just even a few months ago, but Kenny Omega and Don Callis appeared on Impact this week, cutting a promo saying that Kenny is going to be a belt collector. He's now got the AAA Mega Championship. He's now got the AEW World Championship. And you know what? He's probably coming for the Impact World Championship next. Switching gears to talk about this week's shows, we've already kind of talked about the NXT TakeOver WarGames event, so let's get right into things with Raw. Oh yeah, I didn't write anything down. If you're someone like me and can't remember what happened on Raw, make sure you go and watch the Raw Review podcast and the Raw Review news video from Ollie Davis and Luke Owen. Oh yeah, that's right. Yes, we got the continuation of the Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt storyline, as Randy Orton took on Bray Wyatt in the main event of Raw as he fought the Mr. Rogers version of Bray Wyatt. Of course, near the end of the show, the lights went out, and Mr. Rogers Bray was replaced by The Fiend as he took down Randy Orton where he lay. It's whatever, I don't watch Raw. The next night on Impact Wrestling, we again had the appearance of Kenny Omega. Omega and Callis cut their promo from the bus at the end of the show, being interviewed by Josh Matthews. Omega fashioned himself a comic book collector, but said he gave up the hobby because he could never attain the most valuable comics. Now he's got a new hobby as a belt collector, and he's already got the most valuable prize in his possession. Also on the show, we had the in-character debut of Tony Khan. Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone appeared in an advertisement on the show to deliver their message, and Tony Khan let slip that he might buy Impact Wrestling? I don't think it'll happen, but he said it. It's interesting, at least. Then on NXT, we had drama surrounding who will be Finn Balor's next challenger for the NXT Championship. A number of people stepped up, but it will be Kyle O'Reilly and Pete Dunne competing to be #1 contender on next week's episode of NXT. This comes after a big altercation on the show that saw Karrion Kross put Damian Priest through the stage. On the other channel, there was a lot to talk about on AEW Dynamite, with Kenny Omega and Don Callis cutting a similar promo to their one on Impact, although they did not deliver the huge announcement that they had promised. What that huge announcement will end up being, I have no idea. Hopefully it's something with other belts, maybe with Kenny Omega's possible championship partner. If Kota Ibushi wins the IWGP Heavyweight Championship on January 4th, please let me have this. I really stuttered getting through that one. I just love the Golden Lovers so much. But also on the show, you had the actual debut of Shaq on the program. That's right, Shaq and Brandy Rhodes were being interviewed by Tony Schiavone backstage, where Brandy Rhodes ended up throwing a glass of water onto Shaq after he was kinda mean to her. Mean old Shaq. But on the wrestling side of things, you had MJF defending his Dynamite Diamond ring against Orange Cassidy in the main event, which really honestly became a lumberjack match by the end of things. Miro ran in and cost Orange Cassidy the match, allowing MJF to hold on to that ring that he holds so dear. And finally on SmackDown, you had the continuation of Roman Reigns' storyline with Kevin Owens and Jey Uso. They've done such a good job with Roman Reigns where he doesn't need to raise his voice in his promos, and his actions have spoken for him. That means that when Roman Reigns does choose to raise his voice, it has that much more of an impact, which we saw on this week's show. In case you missed Adam Blampier's latest list on pro wrestling, this week's list is 10 times wrestlers surprisingly broke character.
We've all seen the candid photos of wrestlers breaking character when the cameras aren't on them. Triple H consoling a child, Baron Corbin consoling a child, which is a significant downgrade for the child, and Undertaker going mental after a hot tag at a house show. But do we all remember the times that wrestlers broke character and it actually made it to air? Well, that's why I'm here. Merry Christmas.
Thought about taking my mask off to introduce that segment, but I'm not gonna do that. Over on WrestleTalk.com, we have a number of features for you to read this week, including 2 top 10 lists from yours truly. That's right, I've got the 10 matches you must see from the careers of John Cena and Shawn Michaels, 2 of WWE's greatest stars, so make sure you check out these lists in case you've missed any of their best matches. But also on WrestleTalk.com, you've got Sonal Lad's list of the 9 best of the Super Juniors matches from this year's tournament. Back over on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to Parts of Unknown, where you can get content like we saw this week with Calling Spots Live. A twist on an already existing concept, the WrestleTalk boys took turns relaying Laurie's story of a Christmas tale featuring WWE wrestlers. As you might expect, hilarity ensued.
I don't remember, because all I've got is Brock Lesnar in my head. Literally, it's awful. It's so bad. I feel so sorry for you, Luke. I literally can't remember.
Meanwhile, over on Wrestle2, you have another week's worth of Wrestling Daily with Alex McCarthy and his various co-hosts.
We left out there as well. I think she's probably had Oscar's best match in WWE as well at WrestleMania 34. That was, I know the finish was people like, oh, really, the streak? But the match was, I would argue, the best on that card.
And another edition of ScreenGrapple with Simon Longden, where he talks about who the Wrestling Person of the Year is.
But really, the second place to go to the Speaking Out movement. That has been the biggest, most important shift in wrestling, a real reckoning that needed to happen.
Kind of like Time Magazine, you know? Over on Phenomenerds, there was a ton of really great content this week, including Luke Owen's latest breakdown of Is Uno actually good.
You can play by the official rules and have a grand old time, or play with every single house rule imaginable and laugh yourself silly with how broken and unfair the game can be.
We also had another edition of Board Game Club, or as they like to say, Board Game Club, as the gang took on Wits and Wagers in another Let's Play.
You don't birth a whole baby in a minute. It takes,
You can.
It takes a...
It can be done.
Alright, you hosers, the last video we gotta talk about is gonna be the list of the 10 best dexterity games that you can buy from Adam Blampied, including... Oh god, this board is so big. Look at this. It's a Crokinole board. Crokinole is the best game ever made, and it's Canadian, eh? It's Canadian, eh?
Pucks here give you 5 points, here give you 10, here give you 15, and any pucks that fall inside the small hole in the middle of the board are put off to one side and net you 20 points at the end of the round. It's so good. It is so good.
Putting on the jersey and getting this board was too much work. It's just gonna stay here and the jersey's staying on. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Coming up next week on our various channels, we have, of course, the TLC pay-per-view. Who will walk away with the Jam That Championship, and will Mr. Davis be able to retain? And of course, next Wednesday, we have Quizzlemania 24. The big fat Quizzlemania of the year. Now, Louis Dangoor seems to think that he can recall more about 2020 in wrestling than me. And he might be right, seeing as he's used Google to his advantage in the past, for sure. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just going to say that the WrestleTalk crew has nothing on Tempest. Tempest is going to retain the Quizzlemania Championship because it's not how many times you can win the title, it's how long you can hold it. And I've got the power of Canada on my side. And that just about wraps it up for another edition of the WrestleTalk Recap. Once again, make sure to submit your videos to be included in the intro on next week's show. I've been 2Title Tempest, reminding you to like, share, and subscribe to stay notified, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Our Instagram is @WrestleTalk.official. Our Twitter is @WrestleTalk_TV. You can follow me on Twitter @TempestWT. And, I mean, go Maple Leafs, I guess.